in the SUV driving at unrecommended speed through the forest. What do you mean free? My voice pitches as the shock hits me. At the same time? In the rearview mirror, I notice Farah's gaze instantly shoot over to Morgan beside her. Morgan does nothing but frown as she stares out of the passenger window, trees whipping by at such a speed they're nothing but blurred blobs of brown and green. I'm disappointed you have nothing to add to that comment, Farah says, drawing only a roll of the eyes from Nat instead. It would appear the trappers are making a move to kidnap three different targets all at once, Ava states while deftly swinging the car to one side to avoid an oncoming boulder. I grip the dashboard, preventing my body from slamming into the door, but not helping my insides as they lurch with the motion. How can you possibly know for sure? I do not know. I'm trusting the information from the agency, who are more sure than I. Her grip tightens on the steering wheel, a trickle of unease evident through her short, tight breaths. The agency has tools that can pick up on the energy signatures given out by some of the trappers' equipment, Farah explains with a shrug. A neat trick, at least when it works. When it works? That doesn't sound so good, I shout, trying to be heard over the roar of the engine as Ava continues to force it through narrow passageways between encroaching trees. Nat leans around my seat from behind so I can see her. It just means that sometimes by the time we pick up the signal, it can be too late. Hmm. Sure. The information processes in my mind at the same rapid speed we're racing through the forest. I give a stern nod. Then we better make sure we're not late this time. I love your enthusiasm, babe, but there is one small issue we seem to be forgetting. We all look to Farah as we wait for her to finish. She holds up 3 fingers. There are 3 kidnappings and only one team of us. Her words sink with heavy weight into the tension already brewing in the small space of the SUV, right up until the car comes to a jerked halt. I just about manage to brace myself against the dash as I slap my palms onto it, though my seatbelt still almost strangles me as my body whips forward. Ava stares out of the sun-glazed front window as she pushes her aviator glasses up her arched nose. This is the location. We all pile out of the car, and I slam the door shut before walking around to the front of the glossy black agency vehicle and closer to the team leader. Please tell me this is the location where we're meeting the other teams to help us, I say through elongated words, already fearing the answer. She shakes her head, her focus trained out to the surroundings, even if all I can see is wave after wave of hush-leaf trees. We are the closest team. The others are on missions far out from the town. Great. So we're on our own here? I murmur. This is the center of the kidnappings, she continues as she glances about the group. From here we can concentrate our efforts and choose which target to pursue. The other teams will help us as soon as they are able, but that likely won't be soon enough. My eyes widen. That's it. That's why they're splitting up. I throw my hands into the air as anger begins to set ablaze beneath my skin. They're trying to make it impossible for us to save them all. Ava says nothing for a long moment before nodding. And the plan holds. We head to one of the locations as a group. As a team, we should be able to take on whatever is thrown at us and save at least one of the intended targets. We are not splitting the team. There is no way. Hmm. Yeah, let's go with that. The logic of her plan is sound. There's no way of getting around it, especially as I don't have a better one. I give a nod as I meet her eyes. I agree it's the best course of action. Sticking together makes us stronger, especially as we don't know what we'll be walking into. And I guess it's decided. Nat murmurs, though it's difficult not to notice the way her voice drops along with her shoulders. Heading through deep forest near the location of the closest kidnapping. With dusk steadily approaching, the sun radiates the last of its warmth down on Wayhaven, but it's difficult to feel any of its rays, this deep into the shadows of the forest. I shiver, unsure if it's from the thought of what lies ahead or the loss of light. The darkness has the opposite effect on the vampires surrounding me. Their strides lengthen, their bodies seem to relax with every shadow that seeps over them, and each of them sinks into the oncoming night with eagerness. But without the advantage of vampiric night vision, I have to creep through the bracken, carefully treading with light footfalls to avoid the gnarled roots and vines that snatch from my feet with each step I take. Ava lends the way ahead, Nat following close behind and Morgan flanking them to keep watch. My steadier steps mean I lag behind. Farah scouted on ahead, or so I thought. It seems she has other ideas as she suddenly pops out of nowhere at my side. Hey! Her attempted whisper doesn't remain quiet for long as her voice bounces from the trees in a returning echo. um, the surprise of her sudden appearance has my heart rate rocketing for a split second before I manage to draw in a breath to temper it. Hey, I reply, my composure falling back into place as we start off and sink through the trees together. Did you find anything? Oh, yeah, we're definitely on the right track. Her nose wrinkles in a grimace. The forest stinks of trappers. How do you know it's trappers specifically? How many other humans wander around in packs through the forest at this time of night? She shrugs. Plus, I can feel the magic and electricity from their weapons. It kind of infects the air. I chew at my lip in thought, wondering just how sensitive her vampire senses truly are. She glances at me for a moment before brushing a branch from her path. You still think sticking together is the best approach for this? Hmm. Yeah, I'll go with that. I give a quick nod, not wanting to think too much on it. We'll get to save someone tonight, and that's all that matters. I mean, yeah, that's gonna be great, but it's not all that matters, she states through elongated words. What else does? She shrugs and purses her lips for a moment. How about the fact that after Ava gave her order, everyone waited for you to agree before heading out? I come to a quick halt as I realize she's right. Rob pauses by my side and rests a hand on my shoulder. Not sure Ava's going to be the only one in charge of this team soon. I open my mouth to reply, confused and intrigued by what she's saying, but Ava gets there first. Quite, she hisses, ducking down slightly as though the puffy ferns are enough to hide the muscled bulk of her physique. Getting close. Blinding streaks of vibrant pink and gold light are the only remnants of the setting sun. It's enough to cast a highlight through the forest. The vampires avoid the dying light, but I am drawn towards it, chasing the glimmering rays as they cut a path through the shadow that I can follow. We all stop suddenly at a sharp yell, followed by a string of curses loud enough to send a flock of birds scattering from the canopy. I hold my breath for a moment before more shouting begins. Sounds like whoever did taken is putting up a good fight, Morgan comments as she stalks a few steps further along the path. Our pace speeds up until we burst out of the trees into a small clearing, the ground carved in two by a slow running stream. We stop on one side as a group of trappers hold the other bank. Between them, forced to kneel on the ground, is a boy. I suck in a breath. He can't be older than 13. I believe he's 14, one of the trappers corrects, the haughty response already sending a tangle of revulsion to twist in my stomach. The teenager stares wide-eyed at us from across the grassy space. His ivory skin is a mottle of purple bruises and dirt, and any place not dirtied is bloodied, including a dark smear that originates from his nose. His long pointed ears are made even more obvious by the golden branches which encircle and weave around them, glimmering leaves sprouting at the tips. Nat's eyes widen. He's a Dryad, I finish before shaking my head. I thought they were rarely ever seen. Well, you found one, so you want a bloody piece of me too? The boy spits, the words spluttered through another smattering of blood which seeps over his gold-tinged lips. The trappers that crowd around the boy examine us. They definitely did split their forces thin. I don't think I've ever encountered so few of them in a group before. It certainly helps with the boost of confidence that darts through my body. The Dryad's capturer loses focus as her gaze drifts across the team of us. The Dryad instantly seizes the distraction. He launches himself forward, splashing across the small brook, but quickly loses traction on the muddy bank. He flops onto his chest, clawing his fingers into the damp earth to drag himself forwards. He stops in front of us with a wheezed groan before rolling onto his back and staring up at me. Sure, I'll do that. My gaze snaps quickly back up from the boy to the trappers, not wanting to miss any sudden movements they might make towards him. Carefully, I step over the Dryad and spread my feet out, taking a protective stance in front of him. Who the hell are you people? The boy splutters out behind me. We're with the agency, I say, not glancing back. He blows out a breath of relief. Right, that explains a lot. Should get to safety, I continue, keeping my focus trained ahead. But I can hear scrambling behind me and then muted rushed footsteps as the boy runs for the trees. Well, that gets rid of him, Morgan says, watching until he's disappeared completely before turning back to the rest of us. Ava nods. We can worry about him after we've dealt with the trappers. The trappers seem to have found their confidence during the small intermission, hunching towards us, their prods snapped out at their sides. The weapons crackle a vivid blue in the gloomy dusk. There's barely a handful, Farah observes while rocking back on her heels. It'll be over in 5 minutes. And that's the exact moment one of the trappers decides to prove us wrong. We watch as a trapper launches some kind of small device in an arc onto our side of the bank. The group of us, still partly distracted by the boy's safety, don't exactly react instantly. The object bounces a couple of times before settling into the grass. I stare at it with bated breath, waiting for it to explode or, well, just do something more than sit there. It does nothing. What even is this? My question is cut off by a chorus of agonized yells. Ah! Farah lets out a yelp of pain and buckles onto her knees, the other vampires not far behind. I swing around staring at them. Panic seizes my lungs until my breath is trapped in my chest. What's happening? My voice barely cuts through their cries of anguish. None of them answer. They clutch at their ears, still yelling, eyes squeezed shut to endure whatever pain they're suffering. My gaze darts back to whatever the trappers threw, and I notice the hurriedly scratched runes carved across the metallic surface. Light emanates from the markings, creating a sickly green puddle on the grass around it. It's hand-sized, very similar to a grenade. Recognition punches me in the guts. It looks like a grenade because it is a grenade, one that bursts with ear-shattering high-frequency sound instead of explosives. It's a shrieker, an object I learned about during my research, a device that emits a supersonic shriek to debilitate supernaturals with hypersensitive hearing, a design created by the agency but mutated by the trappers for their own purpose, which involves mostly catching vampires and werewolves. The trappers advance a step towards us in scarily precise unison. So much for an easy win. I quickly drop my focus to the shrieker. The only way we might stand a chance in this fight is to get rid of it. I mean, we've spent all this time trying to learn about these. Wait, what is it? It is research, but it's research in the category defense again. We also have 72% knowledge, though. Surely. Although it's a risky move, I take my eyes from the trappers in order to really focus on the grenade. Its workings look way out of my league, and that's also when I realize my momentary distraction is more than enough for the trappers to make their move. How is it out of my league? I'm almost maxed. They advance again, beginning to circle around me with the precision of sharks on the hunt, prods whipping about me in the dark. Fear stings through my nerves. If I don't do at least something, they have an easy path towards the Dryad hidden in the woods, so I do the only thing my instincts scream at me to do. Make a last stand. I don't know what that means. Why is he not just chucking the hand grenade into the middle of nowhere? The trapper easily sees my flailing attack and sidesteps it with ease. I stumble to the floor with a pained oof. But lying amongst the grass next to my head is the grenade. I snap my hand out to it, grasping the cold metal, and make to push myself onto my feet until a ricochet of pain sparks down my spine. I think I yell. It's hard to be sure with the searing agony which makes me blind for a moment. The trapper above me removes her prod. She says something, but her voice is a hummed echo in my ringing ears. My limbs fire with boiling pain which sears through my nerves. My teeth gritted so hard I can taste blood on my tongue. The shadow of the trapper moves away. It's only then, my senses vague, that I realize I'm still gripping the grenade. Pain jolts through me as I move my free hand, but I force through it anyway with a groan. My body slides over the grass. My legs are lead weights as they drag behind me, even as some agonizing feeling tingles back into my toes while I force myself on. Darkness clouds the edge of my vision as I raise my hand and smash the grenade down on the nearest rock. I don't see if it hits as consciousness seeps away from me entirely. Later that night at the facility. I really hope the battered and bruised body that throbs with pain is not my own, but as I try to move, it becomes achingly obvious that it is. My eyes flicker open, a flood of light stinging against them for a second before my eyes adjust and I begin to recognize the room I'm in. The overhead lights, the slightly earth-tinged scent of incense that wafts around the space, and the contrasting sterile cleanliness of the white and cream cupboards at the far end. I'm in one of the facility's medical rooms. An even more familiar and welcome sight greets me as I roll my head to the side on the pillow. Babe? Farah asks through a hoarse voice. You're awake. Her body flops forwards onto my hospital bed as she rests her forehead against my hand, breathing out her utter relief into the mattress. Just about, I mumble, shifting a little with a wince. Her head flings back up in order to press a hand with gentle strength against my shoulder. Don't move. The doctor said you shouldn't move. She sighs. You've been asleep way too long. Yeah, what did happen? The comment washes over me, much as I wish the stabbing sensation of the pain racking my body would, but I ignore both and frown at her. What happened with the mission? Her gaze instantly drops as she pushes away from the bed. We're not supposed to do debriefings until everyone's here. I've never heard that rule, I retort. She shrugs with her back to me. Well, that's probably because you didn't go through agency training, right? A sigh leaks out of me. Farah, all right, her body sags. But before I tell you anything, at least have a drink so you don't sound like your throat has been melted. She suggests, reaching out to grab a cup and hand it to me. Thank you. I gulp it down like it's ambrosia, sinking further back against the surprisingly soft mattress with a sigh as the cool liquid soothes my parched mouth. I suppose I better go tell the others you're awake, she says, the words ending with a groan. Ava's been desperate to get a proper debrief of the mission underway. Are you going to be up for it? I nod. I'll be fine. It'll probably do me some good to move around a little. All right then, she says, nodding to a duffel bag slouched in a chair to one side. Your clothes are in there. I'll make sure to keep the others busy for a bit, so as you have plenty of time to get dressed. Thanks, Farah, I say, pressing my lips eagerly against hers in return of the quick kiss when she leans close. She rests her forehead against mine and gazes at me for a moment. Guess I'll see you in a bit. With reluctance, she moves away and steps out of the room, closing the door slowly behind her. My feet plant firmly onto the tiled floor, a surprising warmth spreading across my soles and into my toes where I had tensed myself in preparation of the chill. With a release of breath, I hobble my way towards the chair, my own words proving true as my body begins to loosen the more I move. Unzipping the bag, I pull out the pile of clothes inside and quickly begin tugging them on. Just after I manage to splash some water on my face, the door opens and Unit Bravo fill the room. The usual spread is so comfortable and familiar to me now. I barely even notice as they take their places about this small space. Morgan sinking into the shadows of one corner, Ava cross-armed by the window, Nat hunched in the nearby chair, and Farah sitting on the end of the bed at my side. So, I say after silence dominates the space for far too long. Is someone going to tell me what happened? Well, we saved the boy, Farah begins, giving a quick smile. I stare about the dejected hunches of the group. Then why aren't you all happier? The other targets, Nat begins until her voice gives out. Ava steps forward, her stoic strength keeping her shoulders back, but I noticed the smallest crack break across her emotionless mask. The target was the only one who could be rescued. The additional agents just couldn't get to the others in time. Oh, I let out through a breath, falling back against the bed behind me while folding my arms across myself. I see. But we saved someone, Farah chimes, standing in order to walk about the room as though her presence will dispel the sorrowful pressure which beats down on us. To give her credit, it kind of does. No, it wasn't everyone, but we still stopped those trappers from succeeding, she continues. Once, Morgan grunts. Farah attempts a smile, even as a heavy breath seeps through the expression. And I bet that one is grateful for our help. You're right, Nat. You're right, Farah. Nat agrees, standing taller than I've seen from her in a while. We need to focus on what we've achieved for now and what we can do going forwards. Then we should start by talking to the target we saved, Ava suggests, folding her arms before quickly unfolding them in an unusually uncertain gesture. You all go on ahead to room O, and I will ensure our newest member is fully fit before joining. They nod, Farah throwing me a parting smile before joining the others as they leave the room and head down the hallway. A weighted silence erupts through the room, spilling into the tension that had already been lingering there from the previous conversation. Focusing ahead on what needs to be done might be the best thing right now, but it doesn't stop the thoughts of those lost people, taken by trappers for who knows what purposes, which batter against my mind, my ears ringing with their phantom pleas for help. Ava dares a step closer. What are you doing, detective? Well, the thing is, we barely managed to save that one guy because I was there. If we split up, two of the vampires go to this spot and I don't go there, they're both dead. So we barely made that one happen. So even the idea of thinking to split up there is ridiculous and should never even be considered, especially retroactively or retrospectively. Like in the moment at the beginning, you could say, well, maybe you don't know yet what's going to happen. Maybe splitting up would be a better choice. Looking back at it, splitting up would be a horrible decision. Yeah. I suck in a long breath, feeling my slightly erratic pulse slow, my lungs filling and deflating with a calming rhythm. I'm fine. She eyes me carefully. Really, I am. I hold up a hand, shifting myself back to sit on the end of the bed. This is all part of the job. That does not mean that it doesn't come with its difficulties. I meet her eyes as she comes to sit beside me. Doesn't mean I can't handle it. An actual smile catches one corner of her lips as I say that. Why did you want to talk to me? Was it really just to ask how I am? I inquire when quiet falls between us. You're part of my team. I need to ensure your well-being, physically as well as mentally. I want to ensure it, she explains. I tip my head down, my gaze falling to my lap. Just in case I'm not up to the job? She shakes her head. Because you are important to us, not just for your skills, but for who you are. Breath flows easier into my chest as she says that. A sense of freedom lightening my body, my bruises just a little less raw. I also need Farah fully focused, and it seems that is an impossible task unless you are well, she admits with what I hope is caring amusement, making her words almost chuckled. I lean back slightly on my hands and smile. I know how she feels. And you realize why I must keep both of you in top order or I'll lose two of my best people. I arch a brow. Was that a compliment? She stands and strides towards the door. We should meet up with the others and begin our task. A triumphant smile tugs at my lips that I struggle to contain. Yeah, I guess we should. We both head out into the hallway, a newfound easiness settling over us as we go. In room O. For some reason, I was expecting a conference room or something just as bland, but instead the Dryad boy is sat splayed on a small, comfortable sofa at the end of a single-sized bed. My feet sink into a plush rug thrown over warm brown carpeting, the wallpaper lightly patterned to match the cozy feel of the room. The ambience of the low light and homely decor, along with a deep scent of incense, helps even my aching body ease. Still, as I turn my focus back to the teenager, I noticed a slight shudder that passes through him as he tries to keep his expression steady. You need anything? Nat offers. The Dryad looks at him with a deep frown. A full protection crew? Nat sighs, an obvious wish to offer it to the boy evident in the regret that stains her expression. This is the rest of our team, Farah introduces us, stepping away from Morgan's side in one corner and towards the center of the room. You ready to tell us what happened? I've been waiting for her here for hours, so yeah, I'd say so. He retorts, his fingers grasping at the sofa's arm. I step closer to him. Do you know why the trappers wanted you? They're trappers, he begins before sweeping a hand at himself. I'm a supernatural. It's not exactly hard to work out why, is it? I guess not, I reply. The Dryad shrugs, glancing away before sighing. I don't think that's entirely true. They weren't really interested in kidnapping me so much. Ava's focus snaps to the boy. What do you mean? The Dryad explains. Well, I heard the leader lady talking on the phone to someone. She kept mentioning an auction. I was supposed to be a lot at said auction. He snorts a breath, but it comes out shuddered, fear piecing each word he speaks. An auction, I repeat, as though saying the word will help it make more sense. You mean they're selling supernaturals? He shrugs, but the gesture is tight and sends a wince across his face. Only their powers. I hiss out a breath. We did warn you the trappers are pretty low, Morgan comments. I lean against the wall as the idea sends a whole new wave of nausea coursing through me. What did you mean when you said they weren't interested in you? Ava asks, thankfully ignoring the moment I need to take to refine my composure. What other purpose to this could there have been? It's all about screwing with someone, messing with their head, he explains. Human, some human with power. All eyes snap to me. I almost forgot how to breathe. I think I was just a means to do that, the Dryad continues, much more anger present now in his sharp tone. I was only there to tug at their heartstrings. I was supposed to be sold at the auction after that, so as they didn't make a complete loss. He spits. Where were they taking you? Ava asks. Somewhere nearby, from what I could tell. She almost lurches towards the boy with determination set across her broad shoulders. In Wayhaven? Ava, that's enough. Nat interrupts, grasping the team leader by the arm to hold her at bay. He's telling us everything he knows. He needs our protection, not an interrogation. The team leader doesn't argue, only turns away with a slight grunt. Apologies. Whatever, the boy mumbles in return. In the silent pause that follows, the question spills out of me that everyone is waiting to ask. They did all this, kidnapped innocent people, just to what? Screw with me? My voice skitters from my lips even as I try to keep it steady through my calming breaths. Abe. Farah takes a concerned step towards me with hands outstretched. Yeah. This new information isn't exactly easy to process, but I can compartmentalize it until another time. Fretting about it right now isn't going to help anyone. What happens next? I demand, my voice slightly more croaked than I meant it to be. Ava begins, making a rare stumble over her words. I'm honestly not sure. Then let me know when you do, I state, already making my way out of the room. The promise of fresh air more than I can resist after being in that stuffy room for far too long. Later that night, somewhere at the edge of the forest, Sin settles onto the ground as best as he can. He's strong, but the captive he has slung over one shoulder is solid muscle, making even Sin's landing more stuttered than usual. Globs of dried mud spray up as his feet sink hard into the grassy ground. He hefts the captured man down from his shoulder, the fight long gone out of him. Sin places him carefully onto his feet. The man sinks to his knees with a soft thump as an exhausted groan expels from him. The moon barely casts its glow over the scene, shying its silvery gaze away from what's taking place, much as Sin wishes he also could. His stomach coils and knots, his nerves fraying. A painful ache has been beating through a heart he'd long fought cold. Is this him? Sin's leash holder asks with a clap of glee. He nods. This is the individual your spy saw socializing with the human. Good, his leash holder murmurs, reaching out to grip the man's chin in her hand. There's a lot of power in you, isn't there? The man whips his head away with the last of his strength, making his blue hair swing out around him before falling limply over his broad shoulders. The bright teal of the strands have turned a rusty red from the remnants of caked blood. What's with all the bruising and cuts? His leash holder demands accusingly. Capturing the Fae was more difficult than intended. A laugh peals out of his keeper. Trouble with one human and now a simple Fae. Sin, you're losing your touch. Sin stiffens, his ribs tightening like a vice to hear the disappointment in his soul-bonded partner's voice. These situations are not ones I am accustomed to. The keeper waves a hand at him in dismissal before leaning down to meet the captive's eyes. Now then, she tips the badge on the face scrubs upwards. Elidor, let's get you comfortable. Two trappers haul the exhausted captive onto his feet and begin to drag him away. A resigned dullness lingers in the Fae's eyes as he goes. Nausea rocks Sin, so he snaps his focus away, crossing his hands in front of him and sucking in a deep breath. This will sting the human, his leash holder continues with a triumphant flair to the words. It won't be long until they're ours as well. What shall we do with him at the site, boss? One of her minions calls after loading the man onto the truck. She bobs one shoulder up, apparently already bored with the Fae at the thought of her plans coming to fruition. Make sure the assessor gets a look at him. We'll stick him with the other lots until we're ready. Sin's arms drop to his sides as he jerks a step forwards, eyes widening. You're planning to sell him? I thought he was merely a hostage. You really think I'd let anything of value go? His keeper takes Sin's chin between her fingers and shakes her head. Everything has a price, and everything with a price has a potential buyer. His leash holder lets him go with a sharp shove before sauntering away, humming a happy tune as she goes. Sin grits his teeth. Greed. It is a trait he has quickly learned fills the hearts of humans. Next chapter.